Nikola Tesla was easily one of the greatest minds that ever lived, and it's said that had people been more open to his theories and ideas, our world would be a completely different place. At the time, his unique mind wasn't appreciated. It's only been in the years following his death that people respected what he was trying to achieve. Nikola Tesla wasn't one to shy away from electricity and being able to harness it. He also looked at things like anti-gravity technology and something that became known as the ether. One of his famous quotes was the following: "I have worked out a dynamic theory on gravity in all details, and hope to give this to the world very soon." As mentioned, as with many of the great minds of the past, there's a lot of people today that don't understand the impact they had on modern life. For example, electricity, radar, microwaves, the radio, drones and many other things all came from the great mind that was Nikola Tesla. He is the definition of a man that was born in the wrong era. To show how ahead he was, when he was demonstrating a remote-controlled boat at an exhibition at Madison Square Garden, everyone couldn't believe what they were seeing, and branded Tesla as some sort of magician, demanding that the boat be torn open and prove that he hadn't shrunk people inside. It must have been frustrating for Tesla to have been trying to put forward his ideas in a time like this, where instead of being appreciated, people just wrote off your work as being fantasy and magic. Tesla began believing in an old alchemical mysticism known as the ether. He would talk about it for length and believe that he could tap into it, and use its abilities to create a future in which magical devices could exist, and change the landscape and powers of humanity overall. This led to a popular quote that many people reference today, in which Nikola Tesla states the following: "When wireless is perfectly applied, the whole earth will be converted into a huge brain, which in fact is all things being particles of a real and rhythmic whole. We shall be able to communicate with each other instantly, irrespective of distance. Not only this, but we shall see and hear one another as perfectly as though we're face to face, despite intervening distances of thousands of miles, and the instruments through which we shall be able to do this will fit inside a vest pocket." Nikola Tesla is also known for a sad letter he sent to his mother. In the letter he says the following: "My dear mother, I feel sad and dreary when I think of you. I don't know how, but I feel that you are not well. I wish I could be beside you now, mother, to bring you a glass of water. All these years that I spent in the service of mankind brought me nothing but insults and humiliation. This morning I woke up early just before dawn, because I'd heard something that I'd been hearing through my dreams for quite some time now. I heard this voice that sang some beautiful chant, lament or even prayer in Moorish. When I came to my senses, I realized that this voice came from everywhere, and it was impossible to determine whether it was coming from within. I'm afraid of losing my mind. I cannot confide this to Dr. Lionel because I don't trust him anymore. I heard that he visited Mr. Edison 2 weeks ago. Again, my thoughts are of you, mother, and again I feel the same restlessness and sorrow. I will write to the patent office to speed up the realization of my public experiment for 1 week. I have to go back home to my homeland, to you. I know now for sure that you're not well because once again I've heard that lamenting voice, but this time I was wide awake. I still haven't lost my sense. I didn't write to the patent office. Once their agents came and I told him about my intentions in person, he said he was sorry, but the dates could not be changed because all the congressmen have already determined them. I went down to the waterfalls and told the boys to prepare the turbines, and wait for my call tomorrow. I've decided to provide the mankind with the gift it deserves, and return to Europe to you, my mother. Governments here are the same as the ones back home. I have realized now that at the end the mankind depends on governments, and the individual cannot change the world on himself, but that strange voice still bothers me. I know it's connected to you. My experiment was something transcendental. Dear mother, I leave for Yugoslavia tomorrow. Miss Nora went to the port and brought me a ticket for Lisbon. From there I will go by train to Zurich and then straight home. It will take me approximately 10 days, no more than 2 weeks to get home. Today I have entered the Congressional Office building, and at the middle of their congressional session I asked for a couple of minutes of their time. They weren't very happy about it, but they let me. I asked for the telephone to call the laboratory at Niagara Falls. The boys over there activated the turbines and the Congress Hall was lit up with my power, 10 times stronger than the regular one, as I promised it would. I didn't care about their reactions at all. I instantly left the hall, because I didn't do this for them but for mankind. In that very moment when I was looking at the lightning bolt to shine with my wireless electricity, I realized that I wasn't the maker of all of this. I felt that someone or something was carrying it from Niagara Falls to the Congress Hall, and that the law I thought I invented actually always existed. I was just the vessel blessed with inspiration to formulate and explain it to mankind. Instead of triumph and happiness, some empty sorrow emerged. I realized that I had been missing something big in my life, as if I'd left something unrecognized completely. Some formula was within the grasp of my understanding, and I have failed or didn't want to clarify it. That has to be connected to the Moorish lament. I am sure of it now. This letter will never get to you, Mother. I don't know why I write it to you when you cannot read it. Rest in peace, Mother, and please forgive me for choosing paths that led me away from you. I cannot even be there for your funeral. I read the telegram that informed me of your death, and despised people who weren't ready to understand 2 years ago that electricity can be transformed without wires. Now they've seen it, but they won't use it for centuries to come, because someone burned down my downtown laboratory to the ground, with all my formulas and writings in it. They suspect of Mr. Edison. I became so indifferent I cannot even recognize myself. I would maybe feel sad before, but not anymore, because I am now sure that someone is keeping my patents under control, that my discovery isn't mine at all, and finally that mankind was not ready for it. I know that someone is overseeing everything and has a plan of their own, which is probably why I'm so indifferent. I will lay this letter on your grave when I arrive at our village's graveyard. I believe in something that I never believed at. I believe that I'm still a part of you, and that my life is not over for good. I now feel sorry for avoiding Turks, because they sang laments I heard before dawns. I now realize that they knew more about this thing a lot more than I did. All those years spent in science were in vain. Please, Mother, forgive me. Forgive me for taking these paths. This is the last letter that Nikola Tesla sent to his mother, a sad reminder of what he was facing during this time. Tesla also said the following during an interview. I wanted to illuminate the whole Earth. There is enough electricity to become a second sun. Light would appear around the equator, as a ring around Saturn. Mankind is not ready for the great and good. In Colorado Springs I soaked the earth by electricity. Also we can water the other energies, such as positive and mental energy. They are the music of great composers, or the verses of great poets. In the earth's interior there are energy of joy, peace and love. Their expressions are a flower that grows from the earth, the food we get out of her and everything that makes man's homeland. I've spent years looking for the way that this energy could influence people. The beauty and the scent of roses can be used as a medicine, and the sun's rays as a food. Life has an infinite number of forms, and the duty of scientists is to find them in every form of matter. 3 things are essential in this. All that I do is search for them. I know I will not find them, but I will never give up on them. Developed as part of the European Space Agency and NASA's Helioviewer project, the Solar Heliospheric Observatory allows anyone to view its entire library, over the years it's provided some incredible photographs of our sun. However, some have noticed some strange anomalies. The most recent sighting to come from here is said to be a massive UFO seen exiting the sun. It seems that every other day one of these alleged UFOs is seen, with the person who saw it claiming it to be hundreds of miles in length. In this case though, ET database suggested this giant craft was over 25 times the size of planet Earth. ET database suggested that the large flare that could be seen was caused by a giant UFO exiting the sun. They go on to say that it's one of the largest objects they've seen in recent times. Other UFO researchers have pointed out it's one of the best places to see a UFO. Interestingly, they say that different shaped crafts can be seen leaving our sun, and that some of them even stick around for several hours, before making a quick exit. Due to this, amateur researchers have spent countless hours watching these live feeds, and looking through old videos. One individual said the following about the anomalies seen around the sun. "I've been watching the Soho cameras for years and I've seen some strange things. What stands out to me though is how big these crafts are. The majority of these crafts that I see on these cameras are massive. When you compare the size of these objects to the size of our planet, in some cases they're over 10 times the size. I can't work out what these things are, but whatever they are, they're massive and seem to take an interest in our sun." Others, however, have suggested that these crafts can't be real, and that no object could be that big and get that close to the sun. So what are these objects that people are seeing? NASA has provided an official explanation on their Soho page. They said the following: "Ever since launch there's been a number of people who've claimed to have seen flying saucers and other objects in Soho images. Although some of the supposed pictures of UFOs can seem quite intriguing, they've always turned out to have a quite ordinary cause when examined by experienced Soho scientists. In recent times we've been receiving so many questions and claims that we'd like to set the record straight. We've never seen anything that even suggests that there's UFOs out there. In the past we've been accused of covering up UFO evidence when we present our explanations, and of refusing to comment or climbing up when we give up on somebody who won't accept our explanations. While we don't expect to convince everybody, we hope that this page can provide some information for the curious, who want to investigate the claims on their own. Most commonly, UFO claims are due to perfectly natural flaws, or artifacts in our publicly available data. Some of the things that people are seeing are planets, cosmic rays, software glitches and debris. Another NASA official said the following about these claims: "The majority of these alleged UFO sightings can be explained. One of the things that people see is space debris that's made its way in front of the cameras. When these pieces of debris are up close, it can look like an unidentified flying object. In reality, people are just seeing a common piece of space debris. In recent years it seems that more people than ever are talking about unidentified flying objects. Going back several years ago, it was a topic that wasn't talked about or featured in the mainstream media very much. However, in recent years this has changed. People now more than ever are openly talking about this topic. A variety of different people have decided that now is the right time to come forward with their sighting. This includes professionals like pilots. A Navy pilot who recorded an unidentified flying object in 2004 went viral when he decided to tell his story. The object in question is said to resemble a Tic Tac, and over the last few decades many military personnel have come forward with their encounters. Mr. Underwood is the Navy pilot who came forward with his encounter, and described the object as travelling very fast. The object immediately went viral across many sites, mainly because the military tend to stay away from these types of encounters, and even if they do happen they don't tend to comment on them. This video, however, has been described by some theorists as being the best UFO footage to come out in recent years. Interestingly though, the Navy pilot behind the incident isn't a fan of the newfound fame. In recent interviews he stated he doesn't want to get involved with the UFO phenomena, and said that he doesn't think it's alien in nature. He went on to say that the object in question is a UFO, an object that at that moment in time he couldn't identify. Although at first some deemed the footage to be fake, US Navy officials came forward and confirmed the clips are genuine. Radar operator Kevin Day said that he picked up on the mysterious object. Not only that, but there was a group of them flying in a tight formation. This report, however, came several days before the Navy pilot encountered the object. This has caused some to suggest that the UFOs were seen in the area before they were encountered by the pilot. This isn't uncommon, and some individuals have seen some of the most famous UFO crashes days before they make the news. The radar operator said the craft was slowly moving. This caused some to put forward that the objects could have been birds, but the operator said the objects were flying too high to be birds, and interestingly they were flying too close to be any conventional aircrafts. The unidentified flying objects were flying at 28,000 feet, and travelling at an approximate speed of 138 miles per hour. The objects also weren't on an established flight path, meaning they couldn't have been linked to any conventional aircraft. The operator tried to identify what they were, but couldn't come up with a logical answer. Mr. Underwood then had his encounter while he was on a flight training exercise. This happened in 2005, and he was able to remain silent about it for almost 15 years. He's had several interviews talking about the objects, and seems confused about what he encountered that day. In one interview he said the following: "At no point did I want to speculate as to what I thought this thing was, or be associated with alien beings, alien aircrafts and all that stuff. It's just what we call a UFO. I couldn't identify it. It was flying and it was an object. It's as simple as that." The one thing this encounter has done is sparked a new interest in UFOs and unidentifiable phenomena. People are more interested in UFOs now than ever before, and it could be in part because of the Navy UFO sighting. It's one of the clearest UFOs that's been captured on camera, and now the Navy has announced it's genuine. It's given these types of sightings more credibility. When a UFO is seen by someone or caught on camera, it's usually debunked straight away. However, with this footage it shows us that even the Navy have encountered something they're not sure of. Unfortunately, the majority of UFOs and crafts that are caught on camera are not genuine. One paranormal researcher said the following about UFOs: "UFOs make for great headlines and they interest many of us. However, what researchers can agree on is that 99% of them are not genuine. The majority of videos and photographs that are taken of UFOs do eventually get solved. The issue we're facing at the moment is that there's many hoaxes out there, and it's these people that make genuine researchers' life difficult. Instead of trying to find real evidence and push this research further, what I'm finding is that the majority of my time is spent debunking videos, and most of these don't include anything of an unexplainable nature. Every day hundreds of videos of UFOs are taken, and if one sits down and applies logic, it becomes very easy to explain what's actually going on. Most of these alleged UFOs turn out to be everyday things. This includes solar events, photograph anomalies, birds, military operations, balloons, conventional aircrafts, toys such as airplanes, and of course hoaxes. As of today, the topic of UFOs is only gaining more interest. People around the world are opening up and coming forward with their encounters. Every day mysterious objects are being filmed in our sky. Some researchers have even claimed that UFO sightings are on the increase, and that soon we could be receiving some incredible news in regards to this topic. In 2017, newly revealed documents revealed that a collector in Pittsburgh had among his collections 2 Apollo-era NASA computers, as well as hundreds of tapes. These tapes may have had a link to unknown information relating to the exploration of space, but we'll never know now since NASA ordered the tapes to be destroyed. It's believed that the collector who stored the computers and tapes in his garage died in 2011. It's said that a man contacted NASA back in 2015. This was after discovering NASA computers in a basement and garage he was cleaning out. Not only this, but there were also magnetic data tapes dated between 1967 and 1974. These were labelled as Pioneer Probe missions. NASA released the following information in a document back in 2015. Recovery of possible historic 1969 NASA data tapes. This administrative investigation was initiated upon receipt of information from Redacted. A NASA official who advised Redacted, located in Pittsburgh, contacted her regarding her computer with a plate labelled Goddard Space Flight Center, NASA property, and reels of magnetic data tapes. Several were labelled 1969 that were found while an acquaintance was cleaning the residence of a deceased person. On December 1, 2015, the reporting agent interviewed Redacted regarding the NASA reels and computers. Redacted explained he scraps precious metals as a hobby and for additional income. Redacted stated he was approached by Redacted, the Redacted of Redacted, who was aware of Redacted's scrapping hobby. Stated Redacted recently passed away and had a lot of electronic equipment at his residence. According to Redacted, they explained that he could have anything he wanted from the residence. During the weekend of November 14, 2015, Redacted is cleaning Redacted's home and discovered approximately 300 reels of tapes from NASA, dating from 1969 to 1972, along with 2 large computers bearing NASA's markings. Redacted moved the reels of tapes to his residence, but left the computers at Redacted's house because they were very heavy, adding that a crane was likely used to move them. Redacted stated he wanted to do the right thing and return the NASA property. Redacted relayed he has a key to Redacted's residence and would accompany investigators to inspect the computers. This potential recovery of NASA historic items was coordinated with Redacted History Office, NASA headquarters. Redacted advised he would like to review the reel tapes for historic significance, and requested assistance from the NASA Office of Inspector General in collecting them. Interestingly, this was all kept quiet. It was only because Motherboard got wind of what was happening, and then issued a report using a Freedom of Act information request. After this, the documents were released to the public. As some have pointed out though, although the documents were released, a lot of the details have been redacted. One thing that was made clear though was that NASA did have all of the files destroyed. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration has been responsible for numerous incredible achievements, and has made countless discoveries. It's one of the most prestigious research agencies in the world, and one of the first to conduct space explorations. Since the first launch into space, there have been many technological advances and discoveries. However, NASA officials have also been responsible for several errors and failures, which shows that regardless of the studies or experience they may have, it's still possible to make mistakes. It's no secret that only a few of those mistakes have been exposed to the public. One significant mistake made by NASA was losing the original footage of the first moonwalk. NASA officials claim to have searched for these missing tapes since their disappearance was confirmed. NASA have stated that the tapes were simply misplaced, but many people doubt this due to the vast number of tapes that must have been lost. The question is, how did they lose such valuable tapes? Before the tapes were lost, clips from the footage were broadcast on television. These first steps of man on the moon were an unparalleled achievement in space travel at the time, and therefore it seems unbelievable that these tapes could have been misplaced so easily. Many theories were created regarding the whereabouts of these missing tapes. Some say they were hidden from the public for security reasons, others say that they were really lost, and there's also some more complex theories. One of the theories created by a community of people who don't trust the credibility of NASA states that these alleged missing files are hiding something, and so the space agency got rid of any evidence that was on them. However, in recent years these missing tapes were found. It's believed that more than 2,000 tapes of recordings were considered not important by NASA, and were demagnetized to be reused for other occasions, and therefore ended up at an auction. And NASA in turn purchased approximately 65 boxes of these tapes in an auction. Not knowing that the tapes had such important footage on them, the intern planned to sell the tapes on a television station, where they would have been recycled and reused for new recordings. However, the intern then noticed a label on the outside of the boxes identifying them as the Apollo 11 mission. The intern had heard the story of the lost tapes, and therefore found a way to play the tapes in order to identify them. Once they were confirmed as the missing tapes, approximately 2.5 hours of footage was recovered and digitized. Another topic that's interested people is that of UFOs, and even astronauts themselves have come forward with their own stories. One of these individuals is that of Edgar Mitchell. Edgar Mitchell was the 6th person to walk on the moon's surface. He piloted the Apollo 14 lunar module, the first Apollo mission attempting to carry out scientific experiments on the moon. The crew spent 9 hours working in its Faramora Highland region. Despite being one of the lucky few to have experienced the wonders of spaceflight, Mitchell may be known more among the space community due to his outspoken theories on UFOs and alien life. Mitchell grew up in America amid the space race, a mere teenager when the suspected Roswell UFO crash occurred in 1947. Mitchell himself did not live far from the site of the infamous crash. He pursued a military career, joining the US Navy as a pilot in 1948, and was selected by NASA in 1966 to become an astronaut. However, it was towards the end of Mitchell's career, and after his retirement, that he became the focus of discussion about the potentially paranormal events that occur in space, and those that he himself had experienced. It was during the Apollo 14 mission, unbeknownst to the world, that things began to get a little weird with Edgar Mitchell. After experiencing what he described as a spirit above creation, Mitchell became ever more interested in paranormal phenomena and consciousness. He began to conduct ESP experiments, experimenting with psychic abilities such as telepathy, and he did this on board the Apollo 14 module. Chillingly, Mitchell's experience did seem to have an effect on him. He and a group of psychics later alleged they shared mental communications whilst he was in orbit. He later founded the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which continued the experiments he had been conducting in private in his space. During his lifetime, Mitchell consistently testified to the existence of UFOs. In 1996, in an interview with American TV program Dateline, Mitchell stated that UFO contact is very strong, and that the US government was covering up alien visits and UFO crashes. The subject of UFOs and space isn't slowing down either. In fact, there's many that believe that these unidentified flying objects can be seen when looking at the International Space Station. The International Space Station is a large spacecraft that can be found in orbit around our planet. Over the years, astronauts have called this place home. It also serves as a science laboratory where various experiments are being carried out. The station was the work of various countries. Many nations have sent their astronauts to stay on board, and incredibly many parts of it were assembled in space by the astronauts themselves. It's not as deep in space as some people think though. It orbits our planet at an altitude of approximately 250 miles. Due to travelling at over 17,500 miles per hour, it orbits Earth every 90 minutes or so. In recent years, it's become important for space agencies to establish space stations in space. This helps with continued research projects and plans. There's various international space station cameras that give the public a chance to look out into the cosmos. However, every so often someone manages to record something that can't be explained. Here's some videos that have been captured by the International Space Station, allegedly showing crafts that are reported by some as being otherworldly. All across North America are reports of a creature that's been given the name of the Dogman. Those who have reported the creature have described it as looking like a strange werewolf-like creature and seems to possess supernatural strength and abilities. Those who have come forward with their encounters have often compared the creature to a more dog-like Sasquatch, whereas others believe it to be more of a werewolf beast, and at the centre of skinwalker legends. Interestingly, for the last 60 years there have been many reports about these creatures, and as with most of these tales, the majority of these stories follow a similar theme. Researchers have managed to pinpoint the first Dogman sighting to 1887. This was said to have occurred in Wexford County. The story goes that two lumberjacks were having a conversation when one of them spotted something mysterious. He described it as having a man's body and a dog's head. When they noticed it, they quickly left the scene, not wanting to stay and risk getting hurt by the large creature. Fast forward to 1961 and a security guard witnessed something similar in Big Rapids, Michigan. Most of the encounters with these creatures are just stories, and there's no way to back up what the individual saw. However, the security guard remembered that he had a camera on him, and was in fact able to snap a photograph of the large beast. Those who have analysed it say it matches other eyewitness descriptions of the Dogman. One of the issues with these types of stories is the lack of evidence to back them up, but now another photograph is making its way online allegedly showing the Dogman cryptid. It's hard to track down its origin, but the image was first seen on various groups on Facebook. The story goes that one night someone was looking through their trail camera that was pointed towards their garden. After a while they could see something moving in the bushes towards the left side of the screen. Brushing it off as everyday wildlife, they didn't bother to look closer, as seeing nature in their back garden wasn't uncommon. However, after a few minutes the individual noticed that whatever this thing was taking up a lot of room. The animal soon left the scene, leaving the person confused with what they'd just seen, They then decided to download the video and brighten it on their computer. It was only after doing this that they discovered a large dog-like creature had been there the whole time, looking towards the house where the person had been watching the camera. Those who have seen the image have said it's one of the best pieces of evidence of the dogman creature. As of today, there's been various people who have come forward with their encounters with this mysterious beast. One person said the following about their encounter. "I'm going to tell you a story of mine that I rarely tell. My own family don't even know about this, and while that may sound strange to you, trust me, it makes sense to tell internet strangers than people I'm forced to be around. This story has been told on YouTube before, but I want to clear up some confusion around it. This happened when I was much younger. I'd have to ask my parents when the camping trip happened to tell you how many years ago it was, but I can assure you it was at least a decade. Now I'm going to use some questionable words to describe the location. Words like wooded and wilderness reserve, because I don't know the best words for this thing. Around a decade ago, a friend from church asked me to join his family on a camping trip to a wilderness reserve called Oasis State Park. Of course, since this was my best friend and his family had always been nice, I said yes. Up until that point I'd only camped rarely, so the prospect of camping with a friend and his family seemed absolutely amazing. So we began preparing for a weekend when I wasn't busy. I got my own tent, my own sleeping bag and my own supplies. Once all that was gathered, the father of the friend came and picked me up, and my parents waved me off. There's quite a few things I remember from that trip. The amazingly hostile yet beautiful New Mexico countryside, the high ground and the campsite. The New Mexican wilderness isn't something a lot of people fantasize about camping in, at least not as far as I know, but Oasis State Park is different. The camping plots are all nice even if the best ones are taken. There's a pretty lake, lots of wildlife, and I have to admit more trees than I've ever seen in my town. I know nobody thinks of multitudes of trees when they think of New Mexico, and for good reason. They aren't the most common occurrence in the plains unless planted by people. Regardless, Oasis has enough for me to use the term woods. We found ourselves a plot and began setting up our tents. By the afternoon the tents were set and me and my friend ditched his boring younger sister in favour of exploring the park. The memories are fantastic. We found a snake by the lake and watched it drink from the water before slithering off quickly. We explored a place I remember was very sandy. We watched a roadrunner doing its thing. We played all day after lunch and saw so many amazing things by the end of the day. I never would have thought anything could go wrong. We finished the day like you always do, by collecting sticks and starting a fire to eat s'mores and tell ghost stories. None of the stories were scary, probably because me and my friend were kids and his sister was even younger. Shortly after the stories were said and s'mores were eaten, we retired, me to my tent and my friend, his father and his sister to their tent. Now for this setup I'll explain the positioning. This is all going to be important. My tent was at one edge of the plot and my friend's tent was at the exact opposite. This was for privacy reasons. Now at my end of the plot was a mini trail that led through thick brush to the lake. Also around 3 feet from my tent was a little tree. I don't know what kind of tree it was, but it was still young and small. The trail to the lake was to the left of my tent. The lake was behind it and a thin tree line sat across a trail in front of my tent. That trail in front of my tent led to the bathrooms. So I went to bed without a single bit of fear, and before I did I went ahead and urinated on the tree outside of my tent because of laziness. I didn't want to do a 2-minute walk to the bathrooms when nature's toilet was outside my tent. So I finished closing my tent for the night and climbed into my sleeping bag. I don't know how long I slept, but I woke up to use the bathroom. Before I did this though, I decided to grab my little lantern. I flipped on my LED lantern and unzipped the inner flap of my tent, as if that little nylon net could protect me from what I was about to see. Now I should mention that outside of cities in New Mexico it's quite common to hear coyotes howl. It's a nightly occurrence in camping. Even up in little village like Logan you can hear howls from your bedroom. It isn't so unnerving when you're in a house, but when you've got some flimsy nylon walls to protect you and that's it isn't the most comforting sound. As I unzipped my tent flap I could hear a few howls, but they were distant and not worrying. What stunned me into stillness was a loud howl from the direction of the lake, about a yard from my tent. This howl was different though. It had the feel of a coyote howl, but it was deeper and lasted longer. I simply sat there petrified at what I'd heard. I wouldn't be able to guess at how long I sat there breathing hard with my fingers still grasping the zipper, but however long it may have been, it was just long enough for the thing that made the howl to come up to my tent. Suddenly I heard the crunching of claws on dirt, and after that claws on the rocks that made our camping plots. Then I saw the largest shadow made by a living creature I'd ever seen. It lumbered heavily in the direction of the sparse tree line, where I assumed the other howling had come from. Before it got past the tree I urinated on, it stopped. I realised only then that I was both lit like a candle, and had not been trying to silence my heavy breathing. By then it was too late as the hulking thing lumbered over close to the tree, and into the light of my lantern. As dim as the LED light was at that distance, it was just barely enough to make out details. I'd like to note a few very important details that stuck out to me as odd. It had roughly the fur colouring of a coyote, but that classic dogman head shape with tiny pointed ears too small to make sense. It also made strange noises as it lowered on all fours in front of my tent, popping sounds like joints rubbing together, as I can only imagine its knees busted out of their standing joints, and fell into different joints to support it on all fours. It briefly ignored me. The breaths were similar to a dog's but longer and far deeper, almost like a horse's. Then that thing turned to me and stared me straight into my eyes. Its eyes didn't glow. They didn't peer into my soul, but they were unbelievably unnatural. Above all things I saw in those eyes, I saw a predator. Have you ever been in a position where you made eye contact with a beast you know is stronger than you? Something you know could just slaughter you, and you know it knows you know. Just looking for so long that I thought for sure I'd just be a bloody stain by the time anyone reached my tent. Screaming would do nothing, but despite every feeling in my gut, despite the dread of knowing it was a predator and I was prey, I didn't die. Instead it turned slowly, ever so slowly, and just sprinted off into the woods. It just went into the night faster than it came. I have one personal friend who knows about what happened, and jokes that it was my weed that caused it to stall and then run away, or maybe it just wasn't hungry, or most improbable it just had enough morals not to kill a kid. I'll never really know. Needless to say, I didn't go to the bathroom. I just put my lantern away, closed up my tent flap and held it in all night. I don't remember sleeping that night. I might have, I might not, but if I did it was dreamless. I do remember that I tried to hide the expression the next day, asking if my friend and his family heard any howling. When they did hear howling they told me just to ignore it, thinking it was a coyote. I was encouraged to ignore it, as if I was a city kid who'd never heard a coyote howling before. The next day I stayed as close to my friends as possible while exploring, and had nearly forgotten about the encounter by lunch. Somehow the safety I had been feeling during the day put the beast out of my mind, until we found tracks in a sandy place. Coyote tracks. I think those tracks confirmed to me that it wasn't just a dream, and because of that I showed enough fear that night to convince my friend's family to let me sleep in their tent. Even in the comfort of a warmer tent and in the presence of a few adults, I couldn't sleep that night. I'd nearly drift into a sleep and then I'd hear a coyote howl. The next day I pretended to be sick, and got my mother to drive up and take me home a day or two early. It was the worst camping trip of my life. It ruined not only my whole summer, but it also ruined camping. I haven't been camping without a tent buddy since, and I don't plan to. Even then, I'm never comfortable. I'm always listening for strange noises and acting paranoid. This really messed me up. Being forced to see that a human which is at the top of the food chain is utterly powerless in front of such a beast. I don't think I can press hard enough to make everyone realize how powerless I felt. Even today when I think about this, I remember two things. Those eyes and that feeling. Just writing this sent multiple shivers up my spine. The Large Hadron Collider was built by the European Organization for Nuclear Research, also known as CERN. It's the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator. It first started up on the 10th of September 2008, and remains the latest addition to CERN's accelerator complex. The Large Hadron Collider consists of a 27-kilometer ring of superconducting magnets, with a number of accelerating structures to boost the energy of the particles along the way. CERN, the European Physics Research Centre, recently upgraded the Large Hadron Collider. The upgrade comes 6 years after the collider managed to provide scientists with answers to a riddle, when it confirmed that the Higgs boson exists. Scientists claim the upgrade would help in boosting luminosity of proton smashing experiments at the Large Hadron Collider 17 miles underneath the border of Switzerland and France. It should help to boost the amount of particle collision tenfold, which would give them a much clearer picture of the subatomic world. It's just been announced that a new super collider has been approved by CERN, and what's interesting is that it makes the current one look tiny. This new collider will have a circumference of over 62 miles, meaning it will be 4 times bigger and much more powerful than the current one. However, this isn't going to be cheap, with researchers estimating it's going to cost around $23 billion. CERN said the following about the news. Such a massive machine would produce copious amounts of Higgs boson in a very clean environment. It would make dramatic progress in mapping the diverse interactions of the Higgs boson with other particles, and allow measurements of extremely high precision. They continued with the following on their website. The Future Circular Collider Study is developing designs for a high-performance particle collider to extend the research currently being conducted at the Large Hadron Collider once the latter reaches the end of its lifespan. The goal of the FCC is to greatly push the energy and intensity frontiers of particle colliders, with the aim of reaching collision energies of 100 TeV, or tera-electron volts in the search of new physics. The FCC study, hosted by CERN, is an international collaboration of more than 150 universities, research institutes and industrial partners from all over the world. The study will elaborate on different possibilities for circular colliders, new detector facilities, the associated infrastructure cost estimates, global implementation scenarios, as well as appropriate international governance structures. The FCC examines scenarios of 3 different types of particle collisions: hadron, proton-proton and heavy ion collisions, like in the Large Hadron Collider; electron-positron collisions, as in the former LEP; and proton-electron collisions. One question that people have asked is, where is this money coming from? Officials said they will be getting backing from EU member states, but if it comes to it, they may have to reach out to countries like China. For years now, there's been worries that this machine might create something devastating. Various media outlets suggested that this machine could be capable of creating a black hole, with CERN themselves admitting that although this is unlikely, it could happen. CERN even said that it would be great for science if this happened, as it would give them a chance to study possible extra dimensions. Interestingly, scientists have recently come forward and said that our universe may be nothing more than a silver sitting within the edge of a bubble that's constantly expanding into a higher dimension. Scientists said that human brains cannot truly understand the full scale of the universe, and perhaps never will. The universe extends over many tens of billions of light years, and many people can't wrap their head around this. Understanding the structure of the Milky Way has long been a challenge. The solar system sits on the outer edges of one arm in a disk material, and no one can see across the dense center to the other side. The Milky Way does not sit still, but is constantly rotating. The solar system is always moving through space, meaning the Sun and the solar system travel with them. The solar system travels at an average speed of 515,000 miles per hour. Even at this incredible speed, the solar system would take around 230 million years to travel all around the Milky Way. Bear in mind, this is how long it would take to travel just one galaxy. In the observable universe, there is estimated to contain 200 billion to 2 trillion galaxies. This gives you an idea of how monumentally vast the universe is. One startling revelation made by quantum physicists that has converted even the most optimistic individuals is the concept of the multiverse theory. When pondering the mathematical implications and probability of a universe forming, as well as other theories in regards to dimensional mathematics, physicists began positing a thought experiment forward. Why did our universe form with these specific rules, with these specific numbers and laws of mathematics? Scientists believe that the odds of this occurring are so astronomical that it's far more probable that every variation of every possible universe exists to allow such occurrences. What's even more interesting is that researchers believe they have evidence of the multiverse theory occurring in the natural world, given the complete probabilistic determination of quantum mechanics, and its properties such as Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, and the formation of virtual particles. This could very well mean that every possible variation of every universe and every decision ever made could more than exist, and could potentially one day be explored. Going back to black holes, these massive celestial bodies have interested scientists for years. The theory behind black holes was more than just shrouded in mystery, and it was not until a man by the recognizable name of Albert Einstein helped humanity to realize that space and time are interwoven and connected in something we refer to as the fabric of space-time. The mathematical theory of mass then being able to stretch and distort this fabric, similar to that of a rock resting on a cloth, led to an innovative idea. When scientists picked up on the gravitational waves, they stated that it allowed them to study astronomical events occurring in the universe. The researchers said that what they were seeing was the merging of a black hole and a neutron star. At the moment, more study is needed, but if this can be confirmed, it's thought this could help us to confirm that black holes and neutron stars can coexist in a binary system. One of the researchers said the following about the event: "It's like listening to somebody whisper a word in a busy cafe. It can be difficult to make out the word or even be sure if someone whispered in the first place." What some people may not be aware of is how big some of these black holes are. For example, there's a black hole that's known as SDSSJ, and this black hole is so massive that it's more than 12 billion times the mass of our Sun. Researchers began to wonder how such a large singularity forms if our universe is believed to be only 13 billion years old. Today, the black hole continues to be one of the largest, youngest black holes out in space, and is believed to be even younger in nature if we were to visit it. However, given the distortion of space and time, it would be another 13 billion light years before any information could catch up and show us its true size. This black hole is incredibly far away. One light year is around 5.8 trillion miles, or 9.5 trillion kilometers, so it's fair to say we won't be able to get anywhere near it anytime soon. CERN said the following about black holes on their website: "Another way of revealing extra dimensions would be through the production of microscopic black holes. What exactly we would detect would depend on the number of extra dimensions, the mass of the black hole, the size of the dimensions and energy at which the black hole occurs. If micro black holes do appear in the collision created by the Large Hadron Collider, they would disintegrate rapidly. Some theories suggest a particle called the graviton is associated with gravity, in the same way as the photon is associated with the electromagnetic force. If gravitons exist, it should be possible to create them at the Large Hadron Collider, but they would rapidly disappear into extra dimensions. Collisions in particle accelerators always create balanced events, just like fireworks with particles flying out in all directions. A graviton might escape our detection, leaving an empty zone that we notice as an imbalance in momentum and energy in the event. So what do you make of this news? And do you think we should be building these circular colliders? Some are worried that we are experimenting with things that are beyond our knowledge, and that it could have bad consequences, while others have said that we should be going down this path and exploring areas that we don't fully understand, going on to say that it could lead on to bigger discoveries. Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.